Alright everybody, and welcome to Photomikes Garage. Today I'm going to be driving my 1973 Camaro Z28. Let's go for a ride. But first let's take a look at this car. I actually have in a spot where I can actually walk around it and show you this car from a further distance. And just in a minute I'm going to get in and go for a little ride. I got to get some gas. And maybe I'll tell you a story about this car. But yeah, isn't she a beauty? Isn't she a beauty? Every time I start thinking, maybe I should sell this car, I just go out and look at it. Can you actually find anything better than this, except for perhaps a 1960s Ferrari? And honestly, it actually looks a bit like a 1960s Ferrari. It really does. Some of the rear fender treatments, the treatment of the rear window is very similar to Ferraris from the 60s. So yeah, this thing is gorgeous, especially in its Rally Sport configuration. Rally Sport, you probably have seen Camaros with the full bumper going across the front. This one has the bumperettes. This is a true Rally Sport, and this part is actually a urethane rubber. It's actually flexible, designed to take an impact. And so in 1973, you were required to have 5-mile-per-hour bumpers. And this car got away with not having that by having this rubber surround and also by having extra reinforcements inside the nose cone there that allowed it to go and stay around for one more year. So this is the last year of the Rally Sport. The next year, they had to put a big aluminum bumper on the front. And I think it looks just absolutely gorgeous. The Rally Sport also came with the turn signals in the catwalk between the headlights and the grille instead of underneath the bumper like a regular Camaro. And it's basically an appearance package, and it looks awesome. So this is basically what the car would have looked like in the showroom. In 1973, which I always imagine the guy or the girl, not sure, who came in on that day to buy this car. Can you imagine picking this up in 1973 with all those ugly cars that were around in 1973, and you're still able to get something like this? I mean, that's awesome. Now, I will say though that this car has been lowered. It's been lowered on springs and rear leaf springs that lower about maybe 2 inches, and that makes a huge difference on these cars. The tires are also slightly larger than they would have been stock. These are basically 245 60-15s, and probably in the day they probably would have 225 in modern talk, 225 15s. So the tires are a little bit fatter and the car's a little bit lower, and it makes a huge difference. Although it does scrape on driveways though. Okay, let's hear her start up. That is music to the ears. All right, we're in the 1973 Camaro Z28 that I've had since 1982. Driving pretty good, I gotta say. All right, what makes this car special is that it's from 1973. It's old school in many ways, although not completely. By the 1973, the cars had quite a few features that we take for granted today. Power steering, power brakes. I guess that's about it. Everything else is pretty well manual. You gotta put the windows up by yourself. No electric motors to help your weak limbs to do that. You got a manly 4-speed here. And although it does have power steering, it doesn't have any real road feel like a modern car might. The suspension is archaic. It's got leaf springs in the back, like a wagon from the Old West. Coil springs on the front with double A arms, so it's not too bad, but not sophisticated at all. It handled very good for the day though, very good. For 1973, this would be like a revelation. Buying this car in 1973, can you imagine? Going into the, wrong gear, first gear. I guess I should put my window up. I'm gonna crank this up. Okay. Yeah, I'm course, the 1973 cars are not exactly watertight either, so I'm kind of worried with all this rain and being around that I'm going to get water inside this car. It's not like a modern car where you have all these seals and everything else. So you can hear the motor, you can hear the transmission. It's making a little bit of a whiny noise. That's just the experience of having an old car, and it's what people are seeking nowadays as well. You have cars that are way faster. I mean, even a minivan's probably faster than this car now, but they're way faster, they're better in many ways, but they just don't have the passion. They don't have the passion of this kind of car. But what we got to do now is get some gas. Second gear, turn around. And let's get some gas. Okay, how to get gas in a 1973 Camaro. It's not as simple as it seems. That's why I'm going to make a little video about this. Okay, first of all, you got to get out of the car. Carefully, because these big doors, they open wide, and you don't want to hit anything right there. Okay. Yeah, there's no gas filler cap here. Oh, maybe on the other side. There's no gas filler cap here. Where's the gas filler cap? Well, if you guess behind the license plate, you're correct. There it is. Fantastic the way you used to hide these type of things. Nice and hidden, just like that. Okay, should I put regular, 89, 91? No, it can only be 94, high octane, but most importantly, this one at Chevron has no ethanol. You cannot put ethanol in an older car. The rubber lines, the rubber fuel lines are not made for it. They will deteriorate. You must have ethanol-free gas. Must. 94 only. Got to bring it around to the back and carefully insert it into the gas filler. Yes. Just like that. Come on. Fill me up. Now the gas gauge is broken on this car. That's why I'm always visiting all these gas stations until I can get that fixed, of course. Which probably in about a year or two I will. So right now I'm just don't know how full the gas tank is. And also I'm gonna get some extra gas while I'm here. So yeah, the gas filler is behind the rear license plate. Quite a few cars from the 60s and 70s actually did that. They hid the gas filler. Sort of a styling cue from that era. That doesn't happen nowadays, of course, but yeah, one of the cool things about the 70s and 60s. Okay, and the cap is different from the modern caps. It's got prongs here. So at the first stage is get these prongs inserted, and then the secondary prongs are right here. So it's like you put them in the slots right here, like that. So until it gets down to the rubber gasket, then you tighten until it is closed. None of this clicking stuff. None of this clicking stuff. It just closed. There you go. And now no one knows where your gas filler cap is. Wonderful. Gas station stop there. Hope that was educational for all you guys, especially you young folks who don't know nothing about old cars. Anyway, so this is a 1973 Camaro, but I bought it in 1982, long time ago, and a time where some of you guys were not even born yet. But 1982, I bought this car. I believe I was 20 years old in 1982. No, I was 21 in 1982, which is pretty awesome. Pretty awesome thing to do. A 20-year-old probably couldn't afford to buy this car now, but I could afford to buy it back then, and that's also because it wasn't exactly in the same shape it is now. I basically bought this car from a guy in Maple Ridge, where I live now, and actually the shop where I bought it from is still around, although different owners, of course. And I was so impressed with this car that I just bought it after one test drive, because it seemed to have so much power, although the power isn't very much compared to some modern cars today, but it seemed to have so much power that I just was blown away. My previous car was a Barracuda, a Plymouth Barracuda with a 6-cylinder, a slant 6. And so this is my first V8 that I had back in '82. And it was a Z28, so what more do you want? So I bought it right away. And of course it was a pretty good deal, because Z28 Camaros like this were going for around $5,000 or maybe $5,500, which doesn't sound like a lot of money, but back then in '82, that's still quite a bit of money, especially for a kid who's 21 years old. So I got this car for $4,600 bucks. $4,600 and $82. That's all the money I had in the world. All my money was saved up, and I had been looking for a 1968 or 69 Barracuda with a 340 V8s, because I'm basically a Dodge guy, as you guys know. But then when the Z28 came up in the Auto Trader, I thought, I've got to have this. So I went and looked at it, and it was not as good looking as it is now. It had a cheap orange paint job on it, very cheap, but still had a few dents. And I took a test drive, and even though I was pretty young at the time, the guy let me drive the car, and I just drove it around Maple Ridge for a very short period of time, and I was sold. And I didn't even bargain the guy down. I paid him $4,600 bucks. But of course I couldn't buy it right away. So I came, I think, on the weekend with my dad to pick it up. And I seemed to notice that there was another dent in the car somewhere, but I wasn't sure, so I didn't say anything. I'm pretty sure they took it out for a joyride before they gave it to me. And I carefully drove the car home. And it was very exciting with my dad following me all the way. And it was great. So the next day, I go to show my car to all my friends down in East Vancouver. That's where most of them lived, was East Vancouver. And I was showing them the car, and they were pretty impressed. Z28. I mean, there you go, right? They're pretty impressed. However, when I opened the trunk to show them the trunk, that's actually the first time I had opened the trunk. I hadn't opened the trunk when I was looking at the car, and I looked right through the trunk floor and I could see grass. That's right, there was gigantic rust holes all throughout the trunk that I hadn't even seen because I hadn't opened the trunk when I was looking at the car. And as I found out, so that wasn't too impressing for my friends, so that didn't impress my friends too much. And then as I found out, the whole car, especially the back of the car, was completely rusted out. They had used newspaper to hold the fenders on. They put newspaper down, they put Bond over the newspaper. It was like the worst scam bodywork job ever. That was very depressing. But what was more depressing is when a couple days later my leaf springs started to come through the trunk floor, because the trunk floor was basically gone. So my leaf springs, the back of my leaf springs started to come through the trunk floor and started to hit the fender as I was driving. And so I did what anybody would do at that age. I put a basketball there and wedged it up against the fender so that it wouldn't move around too much. But every once in a while the basketball would come off and I would bang, 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 right? And whenever I drove my friends around the car, they'd say, "What's that banging?" And I would just say, "Well, I guess I have tools in the back that's making that noise." When really, it's the leaf spring that's banging on the fender. Totally unsafe. Totally unsafe. So don't make that mistake. Don't get in love with a car and then just buy it without really thinking. Don't do that. So now I'm on a bit of a twisty road, but it sweats and these tires are old, so I can't really go fast, but still it's kind of fun. So don't make the same mistake I made when I was 21 and just buy a car because you fall in love with it, you look at it, you love it. It's a Z28, of course you wouldn't love it. Don't do that. You gotta do your due diligence And even though the price was a little bit low for a Z28 at that time, it was way too high for the rust bucket, the complete rust bucket that I got. The only good thing was that the motor and all the mechanical parts were in good shape at the time. But the motor, but the body was Swiss cheese and dangerous. So within about a month or two after driving the car with a basketball in the trunk to hold up the rear leaf spring, I decided that this is actually kind of dangerous. So my mother advised me that, yes, that's dangerous, so park the car and sell it for parts. And I refused to do that. I refused. Tearfully, I said to her, no, it's my Z28, I can't do that. I can't sell it for parts. So the car sat there, leaving rust stains in my mother's driveway for at least 3 years. I don't know how she put up with that. But you gotta love mothers, they put up with all this kind of stuff. And I came up with a plan. I was gonna fix the car myself, replace all the panels, weld them all on, which I did. It took me a long time. I'm now 60, and the job is finally done. Only took me like 38 years or so. Anyway, so now I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I didn't sell for parts. It's pretty rare to hold on to a car this long. That's quite amazing, really. So the car cruises pretty darn good. Stops pretty good too. A little uneven. And of course, no ABS brakes in a 1973 Camaro, by the way, so just in case you're wondering, you're on your own. Anyway, so that's my story for today on the 1973 Camaro, about how I purchased the car way back when in 1982. Made a few mistakes, which people do when they're young, and but it turned out great. As you can see, I'm driving the car now. It's not perfect, but I still have it, and it's beautiful. It's just gorgeous. Anyway, thanks for watching Photomikes Garage. I will see you next time.